The new national minimum wage is set to go up from $25.42 to $27.58 from tomorrow. That's from the 1st of March. The increase will apply to most workers, including farm and domestic workers. Let's bring in the Labour Department's Acting Deputy Director General, Thembinkosi Mkalipi. It's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for coming on to the program. It certainly sounds like a positive story, right? But there is some concern that it may inadvertently discourage job creation. In your conversations, in your consultations with various other stakeholders, I'm sure those issues did come up as well, as the Labour Department, that is, yeah.
Every year, the national minimum wage started operating from 2019. Every year when we renew the national minimum wage, a decision that is taken is influenced by research. Even in this case, the research has been done by the University of Cape Town that look at what are the effects of the national minimum wage on employment. And that research has been consistent in the last 5 years, saying that there is no negative effect on the national minimum wage on employment. Therefore, we are confident about the decision that we are taking because it's backed by empirical evidence and research done by an independent institution, not by the Department of Employment and Labour.
Yeah. It also sometimes feels like, there are concerned parties, concerned, organizations who actually do, sorry, I'm losing my words, they do petition for an increase in the national minimum wage for the benefit of workers. And then once that happens, there is also that negative sentiment that does come with it as well.
Well, it's always the case. And also this process is a very transparent process. The decision is made by a commission that is made out of labor, business, and community and experts. Before the minister can make the decision, it's published for public comment by all the interested parties. They make their comment, the minister considers those comments and make a decision. Therefore, the process is very transparent. There are people who welcome the increases that have been introduced. There are people who believe that the increases are too high. Yeah. But as I've said, the evidence so far over the last 5 years is that the national minimum wage and the increases that have come about are not negative to employment. And we'll see next year when we have the same process whether these increases that we've introduced are they negative to employment.
Yeah. But, to that point, shall we talk about what is contained in the Labour Relations Act insofar as relief for those employers who are unable to meet the new national minimum wage from tomorrow?
Well, in terms of the Minimum Wage Act, because that's the Minimum Wage Act that determines what should happen.
Right.
It says two things. That the national minimum wage must be reviewed to meet up with inflation. You should not have a minimum wage that is eroded by the power of inflation. Secondly, it says all those employers who are not able to meet the commitment of the national minimum wage can apply from the department for exemptions. And that's the avenue open to all employers that are not able to meet the minimum wage. Yeah.
And does that include, I suppose we also need to bring in the fact that domestic workers have also been added to the national minimum wage category. That does complicate things for households as well, who we know over the past few years in particular have actually had a shrinking amount of money available for their expenditure. What happens in a situation where a household is really completely unable to adhere to the national minimum wage? That's a difficult thing in a context where households themselves are struggling.
Even households, remember, they are employers. They are entitled to apply for exemption, just like any other employer. They are employing this domestic worker. Now they say they cannot afford the national minimum wage. They are entitled to apply for exemption.
Right. Is there anything else that we should be looking at tomorrow, or is it largely, you would say, quite a positive story?
It's a positive story for the labour market. It's a positive story for vulnerable workers. Remember, the people that depend on the national minimum wage are very vulnerable. In most cases, they are not even represented by trade unions. There are no trade unions in the areas that they work on. Therefore, it is a positive story. And we call on employers to implement the national minimum wage, those who cannot apply for exemption. The exemption process is a simple process, and if they make application, they get an answer immediately. It operates just like the tax 16. You submit your tax papers, you get immediately the response. The same applies here.
Yeah, and that really is the important part of the story, that this is protection for vulnerable workers. And as you've just heard there from Thembinkosi Mkalipi, if you do need to apply for an exemption as a small business, even as a household employer, insofar as domestic workers are concerned, the process to do so is incredibly easy. Thembinkosi Mkalipi, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. The acting DDG in the Department of Labour, and of course the new national minimum wage kicks in from the 1st of March, which is tomorrow. It goes up to 27 Rand 58 cents.